Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. There is nothing more painful than losing someone who was real. Someone who cared, who gave their all, who stayed through the ups and downs. But do you know what hurts even more? When that person walks away and you realize you will never get them back. See, people take love for granted. They assume you'll always be there. They think they can hurt you, disrespect you, ignore you, and you'll just keep coming back. But one day something shifts. One day you wake up and decide enough is enough. And that's the moment they feel the loss. That's when they start to panic. That's when regret creeps in. Because let's be real, people don't value what they have. They value what they lose. And when you finally stop chasing, stop calling, stop giving them your energy, that's when they feel the pain. That's when they understand they had something precious and now it's gone. So if you're sitting there wondering how to make him feel the weight of losing you, let me break it down for you. Because the secret isn't in revenge. It isn't in making him jealous. The real power, it's in becoming someone he can never have again. The best revenge is not always the one that makes you feel vindicated in the moment. It's not about screaming, fighting, or trying to get them to understand the hurt they've caused. No, the best revenge, the one that will really make them feel the sting of losing you, is simply walking away and moving on with your life. Let me tell you, it's something they'll never expect. They expect you to be angry. They expect you to seek closure, to ask for explanations, to beg for answers. But when you do the opposite, when you cut the cord and just leave, that's when the real pain hits them. Think about it for a second. When someone hurts you, the immediate reaction is usually to fight back. We want them to feel the hurt we're feeling, right? We want them to know exactly what they've done to us. But here's the truth, giving them that satisfaction doesn't help you. It might feel good for a minute, but then you're stuck in the same cycle of pain and anger. So what do? You take a step back, you let go. You stop reacting. You stop trying to get their attention. And let me tell you, that silence is louder than any words you could say. When you stop chasing, when you stop giving them your energy, they start to realize something. You're fine without them. They thought they could mistreat you, use you, and you'd always come running back. They thought you'd be there, waiting for them to fix things. But when you just walk away, they begin to realize that the game they were playing is over. You're not the same person they thought they could take advantage of. You've leveled up, and you're not looking back. People often think that silence means weakness. They think that if you don't react, you're somehow letting them off the hook. But in reality, the silence is the most powerful statement you can make. It says, I don't need you. I am perfectly fine without you. And for someone who once thought they had your heart, your time, your attention, that realization is tough. It's a blow to their ego, and it eats at them. Because here's the thing, they expected you to fight for them. They expected you to plead, to beg, to try and fix things. They thought they could walk away with no consequences. But when they realize you're not doing any of that, it hits them. You're not chasing them. You're not waiting for their apology. You're not stuck in the past, trying to make things right. You've already moved on. You've already decided that you deserve more than what they're offering. And that, my friend, is what stings the most. What you've got to understand is that they've been living with the assumption that they could hurt you, and you just take it. They've taken you for granted, thinking you would always be there to fix things when they broke them. But when you pull back, when you stop giving them your time and energy, it forces them to confront the reality they never thought they'd face. You don't need them. And trust me, that's harder for them to accept than any argument or confrontation could ever be. The hardest part for them is when they see you thriving without them. You see, when you cut the emotional cord and stop waiting, you start focusing on yourself. You start living for you. And when they see that, when they see you looking better, doing better, and moving on with your life, it's like a punch in the gut. They realize that not only have they lost you, but they've lost someone who was once everything to them. They've lost the person who was ready to build, to support, to give love without hesitation. And now you're out here thriving, living your best life without them in it. And here's where the power really comes in. When you move on with dignity, when you rise above the situation, and when you let go without drama, you're not just sending a message to them. You're sending it to yourself too. You're saying, I deserve better. You're saying, I'm not going to settle for less than I'm worth. And that feeling of strength, that feeling of peace is what will carry you forward. When they look back and realize that you're not waiting around, that you're not missing them, that you're living your best life, they'll feel it, that realization that they lost something real, something rare, is what will make them regret their actions. And the best part, by then, you'll be so far ahead in your life that you won't even need them to validate your success. You'll know your worth, and you'll be better for walking away. When someone takes you for granted, it can feel like a personal betrayal. You give your time, your energy, your love, and you expect at least some level of appreciation in return. But when they fail to show that appreciation, when they ignore your efforts or treat you as if you're disposable, that's when it's time to make a change. The best way to make them feel the consequences of their actions is to stop giving them any more of your energy. This might seem difficult, especially when you've invested so much into the relationship. But trust me, cutting them off emotionally is the only way to make them truly realize what they've lost. People who take others for granted do so because they believe they have unlimited access to them. They think that no matter how poorly they treat you, you'll always be there waiting, always ready to forgive, always willing to give them another chance. They've become so accustomed to your presence that they don't even appreciate it anymore. This is where you need to draw the line. You cannot keep giving your energy to someone who doesn't value it. Every text message, every phone call, every ounce of attention you give them is feeding into the idea that they don't need to make any effort. They know you'll always be there when they need you. But when you stop reaching out, when you stop texting them first, when you stop trying to be the one who always makes things work, that's when the tide starts to shift. They'll notice your absence, and the longer it goes on, the more they'll start to realize that they've lost someone who actually cared about them. They'll start wondering why they haven't heard from you, why you're no longer checking in, why you're not putting in the effort anymore. And let me tell you, that confusion, it'll eat away at them. The key is that you stop making the effort first. You stop trying to fix things that aren't your responsibility to fix. When you've been giving all your energy to someone who isn't reciprocating, it starts to drain you. You're putting in all this work, all this love, and they're not doing the same. It's like carrying a heavy load by yourself while the other person just walks along beside you, completely unaffected. That's not how relationships work. A healthy relationship, whether it's romantic, platonic, or familial, is built on mutual respect, effort, and understanding. But when you realize that they're not pulling their weight, you have to stop carrying that load for them. When you start to protect your energy and refuse to put in any more effort, something happens. You stop being the one who's constantly chasing them, constantly trying to make things right. You stop feeling like you're at their mercy, waiting for them to notice you or care for you. Instead, you take back control. You start to reclaim your own worth, And guess what? When they see you pulling back, it's a wake-up call for them. They'll realize that they've been taking advantage of you. And now that you're no longer there to give them the attention they crave, they're going to feel the void you've left. When someone takes you for granted, it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking that if you just try harder, things will get better. You might tell yourself that if you love them enough, if you sacrifice more, they'll eventually appreciate you. But here's the truth. Love cannot be earned through sacrifice alone. Respect and appreciation must be mutual. If they're not offering that in return, it's time to stop putting your energy into someone who isn't giving the same. This isn't about being cold or spiteful. It's about setting boundaries and showing them that you know your worth. By refusing to chase after them, you're sending a clear message. You don't need their validation, and you won't tolerate being taken for granted anymore. And when they start to feel the absence of your energy, that's when they'll realize they've lost something real, something valuable. They'll realize that they took your presence for granted, and now that it's gone, it's too late to turn back the clock. And here's the thing. You're not doing this to punish them. You're doing this to protect yourself. You deserve someone who values you, someone who recognizes your worth and isn't too blind to see what they have when it's right in front of them. When you stop chasing after them, when you stop giving them the energy they don't deserve, you're taking back control of your life. And that is the most powerful thing you can do for yourself. So stop chasing them. Let them feel the absence. Let them feel the pain of losing you. And let that be the wake-up call they need to understand just how much they took you for granted. When you decide to stop making yourself available to someone who hasn't treated you right, you're not just walking away from a relationship. You're walking towards your own healing and growth. We often think that in order to move on, we need closure, we need them to apologize, or we need some kind of resolution to make sense of everything. But let me tell you, none of that is as important as what you're doing for yourself when you decide to let go and stop chasing after someone who isn't putting in the same effort. The truth is, when we invest emotionally in someone, it can feel like a deep part of ourselves is tied to them. We spend our time thinking about them, worrying about them, and wondering why things aren't working. The problem is, when we focus so much on them, we start neglecting ourselves. We forget about our own needs, our own goals, and our own worth. And when that happens, we get stuck. We get stuck waiting for something that may never come, like an apology or the realization from the other person that they were wrong. And that waiting, that emotional investment without any return, can keep us stuck in a cycle of hurt and disappointment. But when you stop making yourself available, when you stop reaching out, and when you stop chasing them, you start to take control back. You stop giving your energy to someone who isn't showing you the respect and love you deserve. Instead, you direct that energy inward. You begin focusing on yourself, your own healing, and your own growth. And let me tell you, this is the best move you can make. Not just for yourself, but for your future. You deserve to be with someone who sees your value, who recognizes your worth, and who will put in the effort to make sure you feel loved and appreciated. By choosing to stop chasing after someone who hasn't treated you right, you're sending a message. Not just to them, but to yourself. You're saying, I'm worth more than this. I deserve someone who values me the way I value them. You're showing yourself that your time, energy, and love are precious, and they should never be wasted on someone who doesn't understand that. And guess what? When you take that stand, when you put your foot down and decide you're no longer going to be a backup plan, a last resort, or an option, they notice. They'll start to realize that they took you for granted. They'll see that you're not the person they thought you were. You're stronger, more confident, and more aware of your own worth than they ever gave you credit for. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you stop waiting around, something shifts in the dynamic. They no longer have the upper hand. They no longer hold all the cards. Instead, you flip the script. And now they're the ones who are left wondering what happened. They'll start questioning why you're no longer there for them, why you're no longer chasing after them, and why you seem perfectly fine without them. And that's when the regret starts to creep in. That's when they realize they've lost something valuable, something they took for granted. But here's the kicker. When you stop chasing, you don't have to do anything to make them feel this way. They'll feel it naturally. When you pull back and stop giving them your attention, they'll feel the void. They'll start to realize that you were the one holding the relationship together, that you were the one keeping things going. Without you, they'll see how much effort it really takes to keep things afloat, and they'll realize they weren't putting in nearly as much effort as they should have. And in that moment, when they feel that void, that absence of your love and energy, they'll start to regret how they treated you. But it's not just about making them feel regret. It's about reclaiming your power and your peace of mind. It's about stepping away from a situation that wasn't serving you and taking the time to focus on yourself. The moment you stop chasing, you open up the space to grow, to heal, and to become the best version of yourself. You start to rediscover who you are outside of the relationship, outside of the hurt and the disappointment, and you begin to see your own worth in a new light. You see, when you stop chasing someone who doesn't appreciate you, you begin to appreciate yourself more. You begin to recognize your own strength, your own resilience, and your own worth. And that self-love, that confidence will shine through. It will attract the right kind of people into your life, people who will value you, respect you, and treat you with the love you deserve. And when the person who hurt you sees this, sees you thriving without them, sees you becoming a stronger, more confident version of yourself, that's when the real impact happens. That's when they realize that the person they took for granted was the one who was always there for them. And here's the best part. Once you stop chasing, you stop playing their game. You stop being at their mercy, waiting for them to decide whether or not you're worth their time. You stop seeking their approval, their validation, or their attention. And when you do that, you take back control of your life. And that, my friend, is the most powerful thing you can do. You stop letting them dictate your emotions, your actions, and your happiness. You take charge of your own destiny, and you begin living life on your own terms. And when you start doing that, you'll realize something incredible. You don't need them. You're better off without them. And that realization will be your greatest victory. When you stop giving someone who hasn't treated you right the time, attention, and energy they want, you're not just hurting them, you're protecting yourself. People often don't realize how draining it can be to constantly give and give to someone who doesn't appreciate it. They take it for granted because they assume you'll always be there. They think that you'll always answer their calls, respond to their messages, or be the one to put in the effort to make things work. But the moment you stop giving them access to you, the moment you pull back emotionally, that's when the dynamic begins to shift. You stop being the one they can rely on at their convenience. And that shift is not only powerful, it's necessary for your well-being. Here's the reality: when someone doesn't value you, when they've hurt you repeatedly or taken advantage of your kindness, it's not just about them losing you. It's about you realizing your own worth. Often, we stay in situations where we're being mistreated because we have convinced ourselves that we don't deserve better, or we've put the other person's needs before our own. We let ourselves believe that if we give more, if we try harder, things will change. But the truth is, if they don't appreciate you when you're giving everything you've got, they won't appreciate you when you've given more. They'll simply continue to take without giving anything in return. When you stop putting in the effort, it's not just about the other person seeing that you've pulled away. It's about you seeing the power you have over your own life. You've spent so much time trying to make them see your worth, trying to make them realize how much you care. But the moment you stop trying, you free yourself from that emotional cycle. You stop being stuck in a place where you're constantly waiting for validation from someone who isn't giving it to you. And once you make that choice, it's like a weight lifts off your shoulders. The constant stress of worrying whether they'll appreciate you or whether they'll come around melts away. You're no longer focused on them. You're focused on your own growth and well-being. In that silence, in that moment where you've stopped giving and you've stopped chasing, something incredible starts to happen. They begin to feel the absence of your presence. They start to notice that you're no longer there, that you're no longer reaching out, and that you've found peace without them. At first, they may not realize why you've pulled away. They might think you're just angry or upset. But over time, the realization will hit them. They've lost something they took for granted. They'll remember all the times you were there for them, all the times you made an effort, all the times you put their needs before your own. And they'll start to wonder why they didn't appreciate it when they had it. They'll begin to feel the pain of losing someone who was always there, someone who cared deeply for them, someone who gave them love, time, and attention without expecting anything in return. But this isn't just about making them feel regret. It's about what this experience teaches you. When you stop chasing after someone who doesn't value you, you learn how much you're worth. You learn that your time, your love, and your energy are precious, and they shouldn't be given to just anyone who doesn't recognize that value. You start to realize that you don't need someone who doesn't treat you right to feel complete. In fact, you become stronger, more self-assured, and more independent because you've learned to put yourself first. You've learned that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's approval or affection. And as you start focusing on yourself, as you start building your own confidence and rediscovering your passions and interests outside of the relationship, you'll notice something amazing happen. You start attracting people who appreciate you for who you are. You start creating space in your life for relationships that are built on mutual respect and love. You stop settling for people who don't see your worth, and you open yourself up to those who do. And this shift, this change in your mindset and your actions will help you build the life you've always wanted, a life filled with people who genuinely value and appreciate you. As for the person who took you for granted, they'll continue to feel the absence of your presence, and that absence will eat away at them. The more time passes, the more they'll regret not treating you the way you deserve to be treated. They'll realize that they had a good thing and didn't recognize it until it was gone. They'll realize that they lost someone who would have been there for them, who would have loved them unconditionally, but they didn't appreciate it. And that regret, that feeling of loss, will linger with them. But here's the key. None of this is about punishing them. It's about taking control of your own life, taking care of yourself, and knowing that you don't need anyone who doesn't appreciate you. By pulling back, by protecting your own heart and energy, you're giving yourself the chance to heal, grow, and become the best version of yourself. And when they finally realize the depth of their mistake, when they realize they lost you, it won't matter anymore. You'll have already moved on to better things, to people who truly understand your worth. And that, my friend, will be your greatest triumph. You won't just make them regret losing you. You'll show them that you're better off without them. And that's the ultimate revenge. When you start focusing on your own healing, growth, and happiness, everything begins to change. The key to moving on and regaining control over your life is not to keep waiting for someone to come around and apologize or make things right. It's about realizing that your healing starts within you, not with someone else's actions or words. You don't need anyone's validation to prove your worth, and you certainly don't need to wait around for them to make things right. The first step in this process is acknowledging that healing is a personal journey, and it doesn't depend on someone else recognizing their mistakes. It begins when you decide that enough is enough. You've been hurt, and it's time to put yourself first. No more waiting, no more hoping, no more chasing after someone who didn't appreciate you. This is the moment you decide to reclaim your power and take control of your own happiness. The healing process doesn't happen overnight, but it's something you initiate for yourself. As you focus on your own well-being, you begin to rediscover what makes you happy outside of the person who hurt you. You start pursuing passions, hobbies, and activities that bring joy into your life. When you're constantly wrapped up in someone else's world, you forget about your own desires and dreams. You start to prioritize what brings you peace and fulfillment. Maybe it's a hobby you set aside, an interest you forgot about, or something you've always wanted to try. By allowing yourself to do things that make you feel alive and fulfilled, you're not only healing from the hurt, but you're also reminding yourself of your worth. You're showing yourself that you are important and deserve to live a life full of happiness and purpose, regardless of anyone's actions toward you. The more you focus on yourself, the more you begin to see your own value. You realize that the pain from the past doesn't define you. It doesn't make you less than or unworthy of love. You're learning to appreciate your own company and embrace your strengths and imperfections. This process is empowering because it gives you the clarity and confidence to let go of people who have hurt you and move forward with your life. You start to develop a sense of freedom that comes with knowing you are enough just as you are, without needing anyone else to complete you. Another important realization during this time is that you begin to see the difference between love and dependency. Sometimes we confuse the two, thinking that we need the other person to fill a void in our life or to make us feel whole. But the truth is, true love starts with self-love. When you love yourself fully, you don't need to depend on someone else's validation to feel complete. You realize that your happiness should never be in the hands of someone else. The only person who can truly make you feel whole is you. By taking a step back, focusing on yourself, and working on your personal growth, you realize that you don't need to settle for anything less than a relationship that adds value to your life, one where both people bring out the best in each other. As you continue to grow, something extraordinary happens. You start to change the way you view your worth and how you let others treat you. The more you heal, the stronger your boundaries become. You learn not to accept disrespect, and you stop giving your time, energy, and love to people who don't appreciate it. This shift doesn't just impact the person who hurt you, it changes the way you move forward in all your relationships. You begin to attract people who value you, respect you, and want to see you succeed. You no longer settle for less than what you deserve because you've learned that your happiness is in your hands, not anyone else's. And here's the powerful part, you're not doing this to make someone regret losing you. You're doing this for you. You're not waiting for an apology or for someone to realize they messed up. You're not stuck hoping that they'll come around and see your worth. You've already moved past that. The more you focus on yourself, the less you care about whether they regret their actions. You've found the strength to heal, and in doing so, you've found your peace. When you begin to regain control of your life, you become more confident, more resilient, and more determined. You realize that you don't need anyone who doesn't value you. You start to believe in your own worth, and this newfound confidence attracts the right people into your life. Those who didn't appreciate you before will look at you and see a person who has grown stronger, more independent, and more self-assured. That is the power of focusing on yourself. It's not about waiting for someone to regret losing you. It's about showing them that you're better off without them. And when they realize they lost someone truly special, it won't matter anymore because you've already moved on to bigger and better things. You've proven that your happiness was never dependent on them, and that's something they'll never be able to take away from you. When you finally make the decision to stop chasing after someone who has hurt you, you're not just walking away from them, you're walking towards something far more important to your own self-worth. This is one of the hardest, yet most transformative decisions you'll ever make. You may feel the pull of longing, the temptation to reach out, to explain yourself, or to try once more to make them understand how much you cared. But let me tell you something. What you're actually doing when you stop chasing them is reclaiming your peace, your dignity, and your life. And this shift in your approach can change everything. When you stop running after someone who has hurt you, they are left with a void. They begin to feel the emptiness of not having access to you anymore. The emotional distance you've created forces them to confront the reality of what they've lost. They realize that you're no longer the person who will always be there to pick up the pieces, no longer the person they could rely on to meet their needs. This shift is unsettling for them because up until now, they were used to you being a constant presence in their life. Your absence becomes something they start to feel deep within them. But here's the kicker. You're not doing this to punish them. You're doing this because you've realized you deserve more than the treatment you've been receiving. The truth is, when you stop chasing, you stop giving away your energy to someone who doesn't deserve it. It's a form of self-respect. You've learned to set boundaries to protect your own emotional space and to stop enabling behavior that makes you feel less than. And as hard as it may seem in the moment, this is when you start to see the real value of what you've been doing for them. Because when you're constantly giving without receiving the same level of care or effort in return, you lose sight of your own worth. By pulling back, you're rediscovering it. You're showing yourself that you are worthy of being treated with kindness, respect, and love. And you no longer need to beg for the scraps of someone's attention or affection. Here's something important to understand. When you stop chasing someone, it gives them the space to reflect on their own actions. They start to question why you pulled back, why you stopped trying. In this space of silence, they're left to face their own guilt and regret. It's not immediate, and it might not happen right away. But eventually, they will begin to notice the consequences of their actions. They might not understand it at first, but over time, the absence of your presence in their life will make them reflect on all the moments they took you for granted, all the times they assumed you'd always be around, and all the ways they let you down. And once they truly understand the depth of their mistake, it'll hit them harder than they ever imagined. The realization of losing you will start to sting, and it will hurt more and more as time goes on. But here's the most important part. This process is about you. It's about you healing, growing, and finding the strength to let go. It's not about waiting for them to regret their actions or come back crawling. It's about you recognizing that you're enough just as you are, and that you don't need to hold on to someone who doesn't see your worth. The moment you let go is the moment you begin to experience the freedom that comes with knowing that your happiness is not dependent on someone else. You start to embrace the freedom that comes with reclaiming your life, your emotions, and your future. And in doing so, you become stronger, more resilient, and more at peace with yourself. When you stop chasing, you stop focusing on someone who doesn't value you, and you start turning your attention back to yourself. You invest time in things that bring you joy, things that bring you peace, and things that help you grow. You begin to heal from the pain they caused. And in doing so, you rediscover the incredible person you are. You reconnect with your passions, your dreams, and your desires. And as you grow and heal, you begin to attract people who see your value, people who respect you, and people who want to be part of your life in a meaningful, positive way. And here's the beauty of it all. By not chasing them, by stepping away from the emotional roller coaster, you are sending a powerful message to the universe and to yourself that you are ready for something better. You no longer settle for less than what you deserve. You're telling yourself that you don't need someone who doesn't appreciate you, and that you're open to finding the relationships that truly bring out the best in you. This shift in mindset is not just empowering, it's life-changing. It's the key to finding the love, respect, and happiness that you deserve. You stop being stuck in a cycle of unreciprocated effort, and instead, you start creating space for new, healthier, more fulfilling relationships to enter your life. And as for the person who didn't appreciate you, they'll eventually feel the pain of losing someone who was truly special. They will begin to regret not giving you the attention and love you deserved. But by that point, you'll be too busy living your best life to care about whether they regret it. You will have already moved on to greater things, to people who see your value and treat you accordingly. That's the real power in not chasing someone. It's not about revenge. It's about reclaiming your life and moving forward with confidence and grace. You'll find that in the end, you were always worth more than the effort you were putting into a one-sided relationship.